do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, I have. Thank you so much.
Okay, next we've got David Ward, and he's talking about township participation in the Partners for Climate Change. Go ahead, David. You've got 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff. It's wonderful to be here again. Things have changed since I spoke here last year. United Nations and World Economic Forum foreign interference is no longer a theory. Even the incoming federal administration is using these words to describe, They're even using stronger language actually to describe the policies of these organizations, such as radical extremism. All of you have seen the C40 mayor's documents I left here previously, and those objectives, starting with zero meat by 2030, these are nothing less than extreme, of course. But these are the sorts of ideas that are being discussed now. The Council of the Corporation of the City of Orillia, in their words, continues to consider its decision-making under the broad umbrella of these United Nations directives. Not only are these directives ill-conceived, ill-informed, disingenuous, they do amount to foreign interference, and they have no standing here. This gets to the heart of my presentation today. With respect to the Partners for Climate Protection Program, PCPP, and the United Nations International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, ICLEI. As I mentioned, these unelected, unaccountable internationalist organizations have zero jurisdiction here. The same holds true for the Prime Minister, cited in the Orillia document as co-chair of the Sustainable Development Goals Advocates Organization. The Prime Minister still holds this position, which, as with Chrystia Freeland sitting on the board of the World Economic Forum, is a complete conflict of interest. Advocating for arbitrary and voluntary objectives does not equate enforceable policy, especially here where suggestions are pushed funnel down to the municipal level. This is not a chain of command, therefore. At best, it is a chain of suggestions. There is still a potential liability. Uxbridge joined the PCPP in 2009 under a different council. There is still the potential liability, however, for continuing participation in ICLEI and its increasingly controversial local environmental initiatives, as you will see in the documents I'll provide. Not only this, the projected cost for continuing through the various PCPP so-called milestones will be of great interest to constituents and taxpayers. According to a now unsearchable webpage, Uxbridge is already at milestone 5 of 5, the monitoring progress reporting results stage. We've all noticed a lot of strange electronic sensors popping up as we drive around the region, and I'll return to this. But let me revisit the comments of Mayor Gary Lynn O'Connor, currently posted on the Uxbridge PCPP page. The Township of Uxbridge staff did an outstanding job recognizing and addressing areas within the township, within the municipal infrastructure where improvements could be made. This not only saved huge dollars, but made a big difference in the environment. Our council will continue to make investments that protect the environment and save taxpayers' money. The emphasis today is on saving taxpayers' money, as almost 2 decades have passed, and we now see these organizations in an entirely different light. Again, no one on this council was involved in signing us onto this program, and this should make it very easy to exit. I've provided lots of evidence for why the climate alarmism is unwarranted, and polls show now that public opinion is rapidly swinging this way. I also shared with you other documents which show the radical impositions these people are willing to make. All of those jobs depend, of course, on perpetuating the climate narrative. As I mentioned in my request to speak here, we can now see that the involvement with PCPP and ICLEI will lead to further costs and future restrictions. But now we have a precedent in the town of Thorold, thanks to Maggie Braun, Gatheth 2030, and the kiclei initiative. I've made mention of kiclei in previous correspondence, that being kick the international council out of local environmental initiatives. I'm not here to make climate change counter-argument again today. However, at the recent climate roundtable, it seems the region is reluctant to accept any science that counters the current U.S. narrative. Yet those who drafted the region's energy plan state in their disclaimer that they have not verified the information they have cited. So no new taxpayer dollars should be spent on any of these climate schemes. We hope this time the material will be received and acknowledged, and that the region will thoroughly re-examine the material it didn't check last time. Of course, both the ICLEI organization and the Government of Canada have waived all liability for disruptions they create, should their information prove to be incorrect or illegal. I quote, "Therefore, extra due diligence is required here, a comprehensive accounting of costs to date and projections of costs into the future to meet those greenhouse gas reductions to 2030 and beyond. The best, quickest, and easiest thing for the town to do would be to exit ICLEI and the PCPP. And to that end, there is a draft resolution here to remove Uxbridge from the PCPP at least. As mentioned, there is a precedent for this, and we look forward to walking you through the three simple steps of this process. Importantly, the town needs not be a member of PCPP to apply for funding through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. This from a representative from the FCM who came out to speak to the Thorold Council when they voted to leave. I hope you'll have a minute to watch this video, which I'll provide later. And of course, you'll be familiar with the funding opportunities page on the FCM site. Uxbridge ECC site provides two earlier success stories, and I'm curious why this page hasn't been updated with the Milestone 5 technology. I do remember the recent retrofit of a storm pond and the downtown culvert flood mitigations, but most of what's been happening recently apparently seems to be not immediately obvious. The arena retrofit aside, much of the PCP focus was on LED lights and data collection. Milestone 5 of the program is where things are likely to get expensive. Tracking the greenhouse gas reduction, updating inventory, and most important from a tax perspective, engaging stakeholders and decision makers. The region stated it will engage in substantially more borrowing in the future to fulfill some of these commitments, presumably. And this will lead to increased taxes, of course. It is important that the townspeople who would be paying for future stakeholder public-private partnerships know who all the existing private players are and who the decision makers in this process were. I'm fairly certain that not more than 1 in 100 people in Uxbridge know the town is currently at Milestone 5 in this process, or even that there is a process. But given the response to our recent canvassing efforts, we know these issues are of low priority, while costs related to such hidden programs are of great concern. CBC tells us Canadians want climate action, but cost of living stands in the way. A separate CBC article states the Ledger poll says only a small fraction of people list climate change as a top issue facing Canada today, and only 40% say they would make some change in their behaviors. I shared a list recently of U.S. states that have passed or have proposed legislation to ban geoengineering, weather modification, and aerial spraying. These things are real. And of course, there was the famous comment in 2021 from Brian Pallister, Premier of Manitoba. This is a billion-dollar rain for our ag community. So I want to thank the people in charge for making that rain available. Keep up the great work. Of course, most people only know what they see on the television, and things like this don't make the evening news. I guarantee, though, now that people are starting to see what's going on around the world, they will demand our governments seriously examine these other causes of climate change before they consider trying to change our behavior and levy more taxes. A few other things that people are concerned about that I can really only touch on here. Those LED lights are very often smart lights. I'm not sure if the lights in Uxbridge are enabled to this extent, but smart lights can also include sensors for measuring emissions. Sound recording equipment is often a feature, of course. We see cameras and various other electronic sensors installed around the region. It would be interesting to know precisely what technology has been employed for gathering information here, as there are massive privacy and data security issues here. I've touched on the dangers of EMF radiation before, as I've taken measurements myself. Smart lights and other devices connected to the Internet of Things all emit various kinds of radiation, all of which add significantly to the EMF smog that even some environmentalists are now worrying about.
David, you've got 30 seconds. Just so you know.
Okay, thank you. LED light poses the risk of unnatural blue spectrum light, now well documented. Other disruptive frequencies. There is an energy savings from basic LEDs, of course, but what is the real cost when we consider the price of all this technology, the cost of monitoring and reporting, and ultimately the cost of implementing new regulations and restrictions based on this collected data? It's time to nip technocracy in the bud. And to begin with, I look forward to discussing a resolution to exit the PCPP. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Are there any questions from council? Okay. Hey, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it. All right, let's jump into finance and admin.